Hello, I'm
And
Dylan,
I'm Kiyan.
and this is Just Your Doctor. That hilariously long podcast where nothing happens. I was just gonna say that long podcast, but I forgot we included the word hilariously.
Yeah, that's why I was questioning including it.
Yeah, well, you also spelled it wrong and then crossed it out and fixed it, which confused me. I was like, what is going on?
Dyslexia. No, but this week we watched The Ambassadors of Death. 7 episodes of essentially nothing.
Surprising non-content. I like using that
yeah.
term. Non-content. With also the hilariously overpowered villains that, as far as we know, never come back.
Yeah, I mean, if they were hostile, though, yeah, wow. I mean, thank goodness they're not, but yeah, I mean, this could have been 7 episodes, like we said. This could have been 4, probably. It's pretty sad.
Maybe. It didn't feel slow until you It didn't feel slow till you finished it and you looked back and were like, wow, surprisingly little happened during that.
I semi-agree with that. I realized it was slow, like, on episode 6.
So basically
at the end. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll just start explaining it then.
Oh, God.
So it begins with this reporter dude reporting about the spaceship called Recovery 7, which is going to recover Mars Probe 7.
Which was launched months ago, obviously, to go explore Mars or whatever, but apparently something went wrong, and they lost contact with it, so they just assumed the mission was a failure.
It turns out they've gone to Mars. I just want to point that out. They sent astronauts to Mars.
Yeah.
In the 70s. Like, what?
Well, the late 70s.
But still! like that makes it any better. We didn't get to the moon till 69.
Yeah, maybe they just thought technology would keep advancing at a rapid rate.
I guess.
I mean, if you think about, like, between 50 and 70, like, space technology, like, that was a pretty rapid advancement.
Yeah.
So maybe they just thought it would continue at that rate. Then it didn't.
Yeah, no.
We're still not there.
And the doctor is working on the TARDIS console, which isn't in the console room for some reason. Which I didn't know. I thought it was in the console room until I read the wiki and was like, that's not the console room.
Yeah, apparently they moved it out to somewhere.
I think the in-universe explanation is that the doctor's trying to fix the console. I think the outside, the real-life universe, is that the TARDIS prop itself wasn't being used because, like, the doctor's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So they kind of decided that they didn't need it. So
Yeah,
they kind of mothballed it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, hey, I guess they redesigned the TARDIS interior, but no, they just moved it.
Although they will very soon, because actually I was reading that they're going to redesign the console at least, because this, or either this or the next serial, is the final time the console appears in its original form, because this is still the original console from First Doctor era, and apparently it's in such a bad state that, like, after either this serial or the next one, they, like, completely overhaul the console and build a new prop for it, so...
Conveniently, I guess they can explain that away by the doctor just having to revamp the console.
That is convenient.
Yeah, I don't actually know what the next TARDIS design looks like, so...
I know what the Fifth Doctor's console looks like, but that I don't know the interim.
Is it the wooden interior TARDIS?
No, I think the Fourth Doctor has the wooden interior TARDIS for, like, 2 serials.
Oh, 2 serials? All right.
I don't know.
We'll
I don't know. I only know the reboot console interiors, and I know the Fifth Doctor's console. Not necessarily his console room, the actual console. Anyway, so the Doctor has the news on, and he hears about this, and while the recovery probe is while Recovery 7 is locking on with Mars Probe 7, this weird noise is played that echoes through the space center where the reporter currently is, as well as the brig, we should mention.
Right, the brig is there with Unit, I guess, overseeing things, because hey, they're in space. There might be aliens involved. I don't know.
Well, they haven't had contact with Mars Probe 7 for a couple of months, so I guess they're like, well, maybe, yeah, aliens. But then the Doctor suddenly realizes he's heard the sound before, and then that's never built on again, but he's heard the sound before.
Does he say he's heard it before, or that he just knows it's some sort of message for some reason?
Well, he says he recognizes it, but he doesn't know where from.
Oh, right, yeah. And then he deduces that it's some sort of message. So,
Yeah.
that really is never expanded upon. Also, once the sound goes off, Charlie, whatever his name was, in Recovery, who was the guy manning Recovery 7, suddenly loses all communication.
Right. So now it's getting pretty sketch. And the
Yeah.
Doctor shows up and just bluffs his way in again.
Yep. And he walks into the control room and you hear him yell back to, presumably some sort of guard, like, "No, I don't need a pass. Stop asking." And honestly, up until this point, this was a pretty good setup for what I thought would be an okay or a good or at least okay serial. I mean, it's pretty interesting so far. This is about halfway or a little less into episode 1, but no, they just really don't go too many places with this at all.
There were some interesting themes. They were executed kind of mediocrely, I think.
Yeah, not to mention literally every character is being unlikable. Like pretty soon.
Except Ralph Cornish. Yeah!
that one serial character who we'll never see again.
My favorite one serial character, Ralph Cornish. Seconded
Really?
with the second as Tagana.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's up there. I mean, the only reason I ended up liking him so much was because every other character was being hateable. But yeah, I mean, why not put him in my top 5, along with Tagana and the chef from Enemy of the World.
Stop trying to make
Best
the chef
character.
happen. The chef's not gonna happen. So, the Doctor claims that it's a message.
Right.
And Cornish goes along with it.
Well, I mean, yeah, first he's
Sort
like...
of reluctantly, but...
The brig kind of intervenes, and he's like, "Hey, I know this guy." Because the Doctor's being a dick. Like...
Yeah.
He's literally not explaining anything to anyone. He's not telling anyone who he is, why he's there, and when anyone asks him something, he essentially just tells them to shut up.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, the message is going to be repeated. And Ralph's like, how do you know that? And then it's immediately repeated. And he's like, see? And he's like, how did you know that? And he's like, well, it's a message and it needs a reply, so it would be repeated, right? And Cornish is like, well, yeah, I guess. How did you know it was a message? He's like, well, I just did.
Yeah, and honestly, if the Third Doctor continues this trend, which started last serial and partially in whatever the first serial was
Spearhead
called,
from Space.
right, Spearhead from Space, then it's gonna be pretty unfortunate because I don't know, I just don't want the main character to be a complete dick.
Presumably he gets better. I think in this serial, he was, I guess, they didn't really touch on it verbally, but I think he's still holding a grudge against the Brigadier after the end of the Silurians.
Yeah, right. Last time we said that they probably, despite them not following up on a lot of plot points on this show, they were probably going to follow up on the whole brig committed genocide last serial, but no.
Well,
No.
the Doctor did act a lot more coldly towards the brig than he
Yeah.
has before, so...
That's true.
Whether or not they mentioned it in speech, you could definitely tell, at least by their actions, they were acknowledging that it happened.
That's true. You know, whether that was intentional or not, you know.
I would say it was intentional, just to give them the benefit of the doubt for once.
I guess.
Anyway, so where were we? Right. They end up triangulating where a reply came from, because a reply came from Earth somewhere. And they ended up discovering it was in London. And then there's this,
Some abandoned warehouse.
yeah, a firefight. The brig decides to take a unit down. There's a firefight, and brig kills 3 people.
Yeah, that lasts like 7 minutes or something like that. Tons of people die.
Which just is a trend for the Third Doctor now. Just every
Yeah.
time, every serial is trying to top the previous one in the death count, I guess.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, the previous serial had 20 deaths, and this one had 30 or 28. So, and his
The
first
one
serial
before had a little
yeah.
over 30, a little over 20.
Yeah, it had about 30 minus 5, so 25. So this one is currently at the top.
We'll just call the Ambassadors of Death.
Yeah, well, the ambassadors didn't do most of the killing.
But they did have that hilariously overpowered
We're getting there.
thing.
We're getting there. Yes,
Right,
episode 1 ends.
So they don't figure out what this group is that sent the reply.
Right.
They just figure out that it is some sort of group, and that they're pretty sketch. So at the end of episode 1, the Doctor and Liz have to go get something, I believe, from like the head scientist at the Space Center, Dr. Taltalian. And so they walk into his room, and he pulls a gun on them.
It ends.
And I don't know if you noticed this, but it looked like Liz was holding a laser disc right there. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
I think it was the big tape, because then the Doctor makes it disappear in the next scene. Which we forgot to mention the scene at the very beginning where Liz is messing with the console and she accidentally gets displaced like a couple seconds into the future.
Oh, right, that.
Which
it never comes up again.
Well, it's only built on when the Doctor makes the disc disappear when he's handing it to Taltalian in episode 2.
Yeah.
No, not a disc. It's an audio recording of the message.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I guess laser discs weren't even around back then, but not that too many people. I mean, they're not around now, but but yeah. So the Doctor makes the thing disappear, and apparently he can do that.
Yeah, and then
could have come in useful before.
And then I guess he never mentions it again.
Yeah.
Something with the TARDIS control, I guess.
Just like the force field thing that was brought up in the War Games, where they imply that all Time Lords can create force fields at will.
Maybe it was just technology on Gallifrey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe it was just something they can do on Gallifrey.
It hasn't been named as Gallifrey yet, though, by the way. It's just still the unnamed planet of the Time Lords for now.
Spoilers. But not really.
Come on. I would be impressed if he went into Doctor Who without knowing his home planet was Gallifrey. That would just be impressive.
So.
Wait, what does he do next?
Doesn't Recovery 7 land next? So yeah, Recovery 7 comes back. They've lost all communications, or all communications have been cut off, so they haven't been able to contact Charlie, who was the astronaut they sent up in Recovery 7 to begin with. But I guess it was just programmed to land. I guess its flight pattern wasn't interrupted. So it lands in some field somewhere. So obviously they need to go pick it up. So Unit goes along with them. And once again, the sketch group shows up trying to pick up Recovery 7, and they have another firefight. I believe a couple motorcyclists died here. I mean, there was that funny scene where those 4 motorcyclists got shot off their motorcycles. I guess it wouldn't be really funny if it happened to you, but...
No, that'd be terrible. Well, anyway, they successfully capture Recovery 7, only to be foiled by the Doctor, who's running late, I guess, to the Recovery 7 party.
I thought he just did that as I thought he did that on purpose, what he did.
I guess, maybe.
It was funny either way, because that conveniently... convenient system he installed on his car. So what happens is the group is getting away with Recovery 7. The Doctor parks his car, his bright yellow car Bessie. That he now has, Bessie, right? And we
should put Bessie on the kill count.
Why?
Well, it's a companion, isn't it?
Are we going that far?
Well, I guess we'll figure it out later. we'll put her on there if he runs someone over in it.
And all right, fair enough. So right, the Doctor asks them for help because Bessie has supposedly broken down. So they're like, well, no, and then he's like, well, I mean, you're not going to be able to get past if you don't help me fix my car. So they're like, fine. So they go to help him fix Bessie, and when they touch the car, the Doctor flips on the anti-thief system, which he conveniently has installed on his car. Which I guess it just what it does is that makes your hand stick to the car, or like
I think it
something like
did that through a force field, since he later mentions he didn't have the force field strong enough when the Brig finds Bessie.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that happens.
He can make force fields, see?
Through his,
He just put the technology into Bessie. Anyway, so he recovers Recovery 7.
Yeah.
And they drive it back to the base. Well, he drives it back to the base and just leaves them stuck to his car. And later on, the Brig has been worried that the Doctor has gone missing, but the Doctor then shows up with Recovery 7. He's like, oh, we found your car. We thought they got you. And he's like, oh, didn't you find 2 men stuck to my car? And the Brig's like, no.
So they got away. So yeah, they need to open Recovery 7, but they're still trying to contact Charlie. Mm-hmm. And he's still not making contact, so they keep trying to contact him, and it's just not working, so the Doctor tries to tell him to open up the pod thingy, but Charlie has actually contacted them, and he keeps saying this is Recovery 7 requesting permission to land, and they're like, what, you've already landed, you're on Earth, you can come out. So then the Doctor's like, well, what's the capital of Australia, or something like that.
Yeah. And
that's how he deduces that it's a recording, which this is into episode 3 now. So,
well, episode 2 ends with that cliffhanger where he goes, all right, torch it open! In that super dramatic scene.
I mean, I guess the Doctor is now in position to command Space Command, because, yeah, they do open it once he gives the command.
Torch it open!
So, yeah, they open it and they find out it's just a recording. And then I was kind of confused as to what they said here. I think it was someone from the group had pulled out or kidnapped the astronauts before they had gotten to Recovery 7 and made a break for it and replaced the astronauts with the recording. Was that what happened?
Well, I assume they took out the astronauts as soon as they had come into possession of Recovery 7. Like the ambassadors, actually, but we're still in the craft when Unit got there, but then when it got stolen by the other men, they took them out before the Doctor got to Recovery 7.
Okay.
Like, that's what I assumed happened.
That would make this group a lot more competent.
Yeah, I guess. But anyway, the next scene is just one of the guys in the group kills two of the other and dumps them in a gravel yard. I just had to mention that scene because it happened.
I thought they died because of the radiation.
They might have.
Yeah, I think they did actually.
Oh yeah, I guess it's yeah.
And then they're like, okay, just dump them in this gravel yard because they were already dead, something like that. But yeah, they died.
Yeah, okay. Well,
and literally all that's happened that we've been explaining didn't really need to have happened in the way it did, with the long drawn out gunfights and the quarry dumping scene.
But you didn't like, or did you not like the all right, torch it open scene?
That was okay, but like, come on, the thing with the thief device, or the anti-thief device, rather, yeah, the thief device steals cars. No, but and the gunfight and the people flying all over the place, the helicopters, and I don't know, it's just
anyway. So they've torched open Recovery 7, and they discovered that the inside is full of radiation, and that if humans were in there, they'd be dead.
Right, so the Doctor's like, well, I guess our astronauts are still in orbit then.
Yeah.
And no one else believes him, mainly because he's not giving reasons, and when anyone asks him why he thinks that, he essentially tells them to shut up again. Or he's just like, well, I don't have to explain it, they're in orbit.
Pretty much.
Wow, Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope the third Doctor gets better. I mean, the second Doctor, kind of had this same, I don't want to say problem, because I didn't think it was a problem with him because it wasn't as pronounced. I guess that's not the right word, but I'm using it anyway. So, but here the third Doctor is just going off on everyone who questions him, even though he's not really, I guess he's in position to command other people and take charge of the situation because he does know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are other. It's not like the people around him are incompetent. Like there's the brig and there's
Liz Shaw.
And what's his name?
The
commander dude.
I
already forgot
said
his
it
name.
a while ago,
Yeah.
but I forgot what it was now.
Yeah, him.
Something with a C. It'll come back to me later.
So meanwhile, they actually captured one of the people from the group who tried to take Recovery 7. Right?
Yeah.
I don't remember where they captured him from, but they captured him and they have him in holding. And the brig can't get anything out of him, so the doctor wants to try questioning him. So he goes in, and the guy's still not talking, so the doctor's like, well, no, yeah, okay then. Would you like some tea? He's like, well, no, yeah, sure. And the doctor just goes off on him saying, address me as sir when I talk to you. And he stands up, and he's like, yes, sir. And I guess...
You learn that he's a soldier.
Yeah, I guess that's how they...
I guess that's why the doctor wasn't surprised when General What's-His-Name shows up later, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned General What's-His-Name because he doesn't show up till like episode 4.
Carrington.
Yeah. But anyway, in episode 3, I think they meet with Sir James, right? Because they want to send up another recovery craft because the commander dude just believes the doctor that they're still in space, and he's like, well, even if they're not, it couldn't hurt to check, right? So Sir James doesn't want to let him go up, which is pretty shady, to be honest. And apparently Recovery 8 will take too long to ready, but conveniently the radiation in Recovery 7 is gone now, so they can just use that instead.
Yeah. And the doctor throughout all this, tries to convince him that he's qualified to go up into the thingy-majig.
Yeah,
he has 2 hearts, so it's like, double the
and he's been into space before.
Humans, yeah.
On a spaceship.
And in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
When it just materialized randomly in space a few serials ago.
And in the Web of Fear. But anyway. So they get a message that the brig has sent for them to come investigate the gravel pit bodies. So Liz goes, but the doctor stays behind to, I guess, ready Recovery 7. And she gets captured. But immediately after she leaves, the brig walks in and he's like, so how's it going, doctor? And he's like, wait, didn't you send for Liz? And he's like, no, I haven't even left the building.
Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, Liz gets captured in another drawn-out chase scene. And that's the end of 3.
That chase scene was so bland. I'm sorry.
The episodes ended in really bad places, not gonna lie.
Episode 4 had a pretty good cliffhanger, I think.
Which one was that?
4 or 5 had a good cliffhanger. The one with...
The one where Quinlan dies, spoiler.
I don't remember exactly, but it was the same episode where Lennox defected. Speaking of Lennox, Liz finds a guy named Lennox working for the enemies.
Right, they take Liz to their underground base of operations, where they've captured the 3 people from the spaceship who you find out they find out actually that they need radiation to survive, because when they don't give them radiation, they start keeling over.
Yeah.
So they're like, quick, get some radioactive isotopes in there.
Also, Lennox is played by the guy who played Viner in Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah,
just wanted to say that out.
He's a pretty good actor, not gonna lie.
Yeah, and he comes back twice more.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because his characters keep dying.
Maybe he's just doomed to always die on the show.
We'll see. I mean, maybe in his next couple appearances he'll die. But yeah, I mean, he's one of the best actors for side characters.
Yeah.
Barring doctors and companions, like, he could hold his own as a companion.
Mm-hmm.
As an actor, not Lennox, but
no, yeah.
But yeah.
Anyway, Taltalian is like, well, the doctor's getting pretty close to figuring out this message, guys. Let's take him out. So they give him a bomb that the timer will activate when he opens it. So he's supposed to open it and then leave it in the room with the doctor, and it'll kill the doctor. But unbeknownst to
And it's in a
Taltalian.
suitcase, by the way.
Yeah. They set the timer to 0 before giving it to him. So when
Yep.
he's talking with the doctor offered him a way to get out, just to tell the doctor everything and then just leave, and no one would pursue him, or otherwise the doctor would turn him into the Brigadier. So he brings in, he's like, yeah, I've got some evidence in my car, I'll go get it, and he opens a suitcase and it blows up in his face and kills him.
Yep. The doctor conveniently escaping the blast by being on the opposite end of the room. So I guess they only killed one bird with that stone.
Yeah, but they meant to kill 2, which is exactly what they said, actually.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Huh.
But anyway, episode 4 continues where they unleash the ambassadors on the space center and they go on a killing rampage and kill Quinlan. And then the doctor finds him and is investigating him and he's about to be touched by one of the ambassadors.
Right, because you find out that anything the ambassadors touch explodes.
And dies if it's human.
Yeah, that's their hilariously OP power. They literally just have to touch things to destroy them.
And they're immune to bullets.
Yeah, they're basically invincible, and
Their only weakness,
literally nothing can touch them.
The only weakness they have is that they live off radiation.
And Victoria screams. No. Imagine.
Victoria's, God knows where, probably battling more seaweed.
Or long dead. No.
Didn't that serial take place in, like, 68?
She could have died. I don't know. I haven't read any of the expanded universe, but this is going back a little bit into episode 4. Didn't Liz escape or something like that?
Liz attempted to escape, but got captured by Taltalian, who happened to be driving there to get the bomb.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
She stole Lennox's key with the help of Lennox and escaped, only to be captured by Taltalian while she was leaving, because the first car that drove by her was a complete dick and just didn't pick her up.
Oh, yeah. Hey, honestly, if you saw, would you pick up a hitchhiker or someone you saw on the road?
Well, it's an army
You can't
base.
blame.
It's an army base.
I guess, yeah, that's a good point.
Anyway.
I still wouldn't, but,
Episode 5. What happens in episode 5?
Well, Quinlan dies again because they recap what happened.
Yeah, every time. And in a really weird way, too.
I didn't think it wasn't as, like, abrasive as, in the War Games when they replayed about 4 minutes of the
No, it was just weird
episode.
because they recapped the cliffhanger and then did the title. Because they, like, played the intro sequence, then recapped the cliffhanger, and then there was the title, The Ambassadors of Death, and then there was the rest of the episode.
Yeah, I guess they were going for like a last time on Doctor Who thing, except they didn't because
it doesn't happen
that.
again, so this is the only serial that does that. Anyway.
So the Doctor walks in.
Well, the Brig walks in behind him and then distracts the ambassador, and they luckily escape from that mess somehow. Oh, Cornish, that's his name.
Oh, right. Do you know, I was kind of confused about this. Maybe it's just some stupid small thing I'm overlooking, but how did they get the ambassadors to go on that rampage?
With the machine Taltalian built that sent them commands, and they told them that if they didn't, they would stop their flow of radiation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. We also forgot to mention that plot point where Taltalian had the translation device, which only worked one way. We could only send commands to the ambassadors, and the Doctor was also working on something similar to that because he found something or the other like that.
He decoded the message, and he figured that he could use that to build a machine that would allow communication.
Right, and then once Taltalian died, he found his machine. He was like, this is very similar to what I was trying to build, which even furthers his suspicions. There.
Also, Taltalian's machines for some reason say 2 + 2 = 5, so that's a thing. Episode 5, the Doctor's like, well, I'll be an astronaut, and Cornish is like, cool, thanks, and they do some tests off screen, I guess, and they're like, well, you're good to go, you're gonna launch in Recovery 7.
Except, what's his face is still opposed to it.
Regan. No. Sir James.
No,
Admiral, what's his name?
Started with a C. Why am I forgetting everyone's name?
Why does
Carrington.
everybody begin with a C?
That was it. Carrington. He's still opposed to it. But too bad because...
The Doctor goes anyway.
Yeah.
And they try to kill him, the men, the group, the resistance group or whatever.
Right, Regan, who's shown up at this point, but we forgot to mention he's essentially, I guess he was supervising Lennox and Liz in the underground base.
Yeah.
It wasn't really underground, it was like 3 steps down. But
anyway, so they only have they don't have enough fuel to refill the rocket, but they have this experimental fuel that would accelerate the rocket too quickly and knock out some regular guys by the G-forces. The Doc's like, well, I'm not
I have
human.
2 hearts, so...
Well, he doesn't say that, but he's like, I can survive more G-force than a human. So they do a mix of regular fuel and M3, but Regan tries to kill him by sabotaging and putting in a lot more M3 than it's supposed to be. And then...
thereby trying to send him into the sun...
some powerful rocket ships.
Just like,
The Seeds of Death.
Right.
A seriously powerful rocket fuel, just gonna say. But anyway, they end up correcting the orbit by jettisoning the first stage early.
Yeah, it was some, I didn't really follow it. It was just some they did some technical stuff.
Astrophysics.
And, yeah, Regan's
docking.
plan doesn't work.
Yeah.
He ends up what?
Docking.
Oh, I thought you said dying. I was like, what? No.
The Doctor dies.
The end.
No, he docks with Mars Probe 7 and everything's all hanky-dory.
Until he sees that spaceship rapidly approaching.
Yeah, and then episode 5 ends.
So yeah, episode 6, the Doctor radios into Space Command and tells them about this spaceship that's tailgating him, essentially. And, it is. I mean, it's approaching rapidly.
I'm imagining a space highway now. This is the UFO.
Like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hey, Liz is the hitchhiker. Well, Douglas Adams was script editor for Doctor Who for a couple years. The fourth
Not
Doctor's
yet.
run. Not yet, but soon.
Yeah, well, in several years. Soon to us, but in several years.
Well, yeah,
so,
of course.
Yeah, I guess the spaceship links up with Recovery 7 or something and tells the Doctor to go
Aboard.
on. They tell him to go into the light or something like that. Or they're like, he's reluctant to step out of the spaceship, but they're like, no, we've prepared an atmosphere for you or something like that.
Yeah.
They use this weird special effect-y background thing, which I'm assuming was impressive for 1970. So he gets onto the spaceship and he sees the 3 astronauts.
Yeah.
From Recovery 7 and Space Probe 7. And they're looking at this monitor, which is displaying flashing lights, and they seem to be watching a game. They're making some commentary on the game they're watching, and the Doctor's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So he asks them if they know where they are, and they're like, well, we're in holding, waiting to be let back into Space Command. Or I guess essentially they thought they had already returned to Earth.
Yeah. And then, so the Doctor tries to convince them that they're not, but they somehow stop paying attention, and...
They basically dismiss him. They're like, what? You're crazy. And then one of the ambassadors shows up. He's not an ambassador because he's not one of the 3, but it's one of them. Were they ever named or anything? I mean...
The astronauts? I don't think so. They might have been.
No, like,
or the
no,
ambassadors?
Yeah.
As an alien species? No, they just call them the ambassadors.
Well, that's really confusing and terrible because only 3 of them are ambassadors.
Yeah, but the Doctor talks to the leader and he's like, why have you captured our ambassadors and not giving them back? And the Doctor's like, wait, what? They're ambassadors? What?
You find out half of what's going on right now. Apparently, the 3 were sent to Earth as ambassadors, but, you know, that didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
So the Doctor promises the alien that he'll rescue them if he's set free. So the... Were they Martians? I was kind of confused.
They're not native
about that.
Martians.
Not native Martians, but they were
At least
from
that's what
Mars.
I just read. I guess they were on Mars at some point when Carrington went there. Yeah, you find out that Carrington was a former astronaut in the Mars program.
Right. Later.
I think they might have just been exploring Mars and they just happened to encounter them.
something
Because
like
the
that.
Ice Warriors are native Martians.
Yeah, there could be two races on Mars. I don't know, but
That
yeah,
reminds me
apparently
of
they're
that
not.
species in Star Trek called the Xindi, where there's 5 species that evolved on that planet to all be intelligent. I haven't watched it, but it sounds like a really cool concept.
It's interesting.
And they tend to have a lot of arguments with each other, predictably. But
Yeah, we
anyway,
got some Neanderthal, Homo sapiens stuff going on there, but yeah. So the Doctor returns to Earth.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, the Doctor returns to Earth and he gets immediately captured out of the
oh right.
deconditioning, the decontamination room. Sorry. Um, and the Brigadier shows up, and General Carrington is like, "You see, he's just running away. He's in league with the aliens." Yeah.
Carrington.
Carrington's pretty
Pretty-
xenophobic.
Yeah. Also, kind of off topic here. All during episode 6, did you notice the coloration was kind of weird? We also didn't mention yet that
Yeah.
this serial was recolored because it was only originally recovered in black and white, but it was eventually recolored, or at least parts of it were because segments of it were still in black and white.
They
But
in 2010 they recolored the entire serial. I guess they were having problems recoloring it, and it took them a long time to actually recolor the whole thing, which is why the coloration may be off because they'd been trying experimental processes to recolor the film.
yeah, I mean, I noticed at some points it was just there was the colors looked really the background colors either looked really vibrant or they even looked like they were flashing at times.
Yeah,
And,
the version we watched was not the obviously fully
Yeah.
recolorized version, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming they fixed all of that in the fully recolorized version.
Yeah.
We can check, but yeah, the serial was erased, as were a lot of Second Doctor serials, and the only recording of this that existed was this off-air black and white recording they found in Canada, and they had to recolor it from that, and I guess
Mhm.
they didn't. It wasn't really easy to do, and this might have been an experimental recolorization.
Probably. I mean, we haven't come across anything like that so far. Um,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the versions we watched split between black and white and color a lot.
yeah, there were some portions in the color segment where the some of the control panels and space control would shift from gray to blue. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing jarring or anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, so Carrington, you find out, well, Sir James died at the end of episode 4, but you find out that Carrington is leading.
we forgot
The
the
rebels.
entire thing where Lennox dies too.
Yeah, Lennox ended up escaping, going to unit, and he got killed in his cell by some isotopes.
Right. He requests to be he requests to be protected or whatever.
Yeah.
So they place him in this cell, and apparently someone's going to give him his meal. So they walk in, place down the tray, and leave. And he asks them to lock the door, and the guy's like, "Heh, heh, sure," except he doesn't say it like that. So
Close enough.
so Lennox opens the he uncovers the tray, and lo and behold, it's an isotope. So he dies.
Yeah. Did you find out Carrington is leading the rebel group? I'm just calling them the rebel group
Yeah,
now.
they were never named, and yeah,
He wants, because the council in Geneva is apparently roadblocked and not getting everyone on their discussion, but the general wants them to basically arm all nuclear missiles and take out the UFO.
right.
And he wants, this is getting into episode 7, but
Yeah, this is episode 7 now.
he takes one of them to the space center and he intends to make a live announcement to the world and demask it.
We should also mention that he reveals more of the backstory to the Doctor and Liz when he tells them that the reason he's so out for blood here is that when he was exploring Mars, they came in. We kind of explained this before. When he was exploring Mars, he and his team member came into contact with the ambassadors. One of the ambassadors touched his partner and killed him. So
Yeah.
he assumes, or he either assumes or he either assumes that they're hostile or he's just using that one specific instance as justification, something like that.
So, oh gosh. We should also mention that he's keeping the Doctor alive because the Doctor claims to be able to build a device that can communicate with the ambassadors both ways. so they can talk with him and give them more complex commands. But the Doctor ends up building a machine that can also transmit Morse code, and he transmits an SOS that Unit ends up picking up. And the Brig tells General Carrington he wants to go investigate, and then Carrington arrests the Brig.
Yep.
And takes command of the Space Center and arrests all of the Unit men.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Brig...
And replaces them with men of his own, I might add. And all this is happening in, like, less than an hour.
Yeah.
Probably less than 30 minutes.
And the reporter guy from episode 1 is back.
Actually.
Yeah, it is.
What reporter guy? Oh, yeah, that guy.
He's back in episode 7 to do the live report with Carrington. So, the Brig makes a daring escape and drives to Unit HQ, and they've only got 1 or 2 men there because everyone was at the Space Center, apparently. Which begs the question, how many soldiers does Unit actually have? Probably not many.
Well, they are an independent group that's supposed to intercept potential threats.
I guess, but they work for the United Nations, don't they? Isn't it the United Nations Intelligence Task Force or whatever?
Yeah, it is.
So anyway...
United Nations, yeah. So the Brig walks into the secret underground base and immediately shoots the guy who opens the door.
Whoa, you skipped the scene where the Brig is like, well, do we have any troop transports? And like, nope. How did you get here? And he's like, well, that car's got bullet holes, so we'll have to take something else. And like, well, there's the Doctor's car. So they just drive there in Bessie, and there's just these soldiers sitting in the car with their guns out the window. And then there's a firefight at the base, and then that happens where he walks in and shoots the guy.
And we should mention also that recurring song that kept playing during this year.
Which was pretty good. I liked it, actually.
It sounded like sounded like Simon and Garfunkel-ish. I don't know if you've
Kind
heard
of.
them.
Yeah. But I liked it though. Yeah. And I like that they're including more incidental music.
Well, I like that they're including more recurring themes and melodies and stuff like that, rather than it just being random songs. Yeah. Because it makes each serial feel more coherent. And like in here, this this song actually played anytime there was, not anytime, but a few of the times when they had chases or fights or something. So like that was like the theme for that, I guess. So that was nice.
So they rescue the Doctor and Liz, and the Doctor's machine actually works, and they tell the 2 ambassadors there that they're going to send them home, but they just need their help to get into the Space Center since Carrington's got it on lockdown.
Not really a problem with the overpowered ambassadors.
Yeah.
So they take the ambassadors to the Space Center, and there's these armed guards blocking their entrance, and they're like, well, go at it, ambassadors. So the ambassadors just walk up.
Well, the Doctor does mention try not to harm anyone.
That's true. And he does announce to the guards that they'll probably die if they don't stand down or if they touch the ambassadors. Yeah.
So clearly the Doctor still cares about having as little bloodshed as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's
an integral part of his character, but it's nice to see it still come up, even though the 3rd Doctor's kind of a jerk sometimes.
I'm assuming that doesn't really change throughout all Doctors. I mean, I guess it varies, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to just have a bloodthirsty Doctor who kills as many people as possible.
Except that story I've heard about the 7th Doctor manipulating some guy into committing suicide, but I guess we'll get there eventually.
So the ambassadors just walk up to the entrance and blow it open. I noticed something here, and we were talking about this before. So, whatever the ambassadors touch explodes, right? Or dies. So, humans kind of explode and die, and like they touch metal and other things and kind of flares up a little bit. But while they're entering the base, they touch a guardrail, and it's okay. Like nothing happens to it. So that was kind of weird, continuity error-ish thing. Potentially, maybe it was just a certain type of material that they're ineffective against. I mean,
maybe it's plastic and they just don't. I don't know. We should pit them against the Autons.
Wait, their power works. They were wearing some suit things, so their power works through that.
Oh,
so it doesn't.
We should pit them against the Autons anyway. We should pit them against the Daleks.
Just have a giant death fight with every alien species on this show.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. The Autons would probably be out first. All they've got is regular guns that shoot bullets. The Daleks have those laser beams that just vaporize anything. The ambassadors of death are immune to bullets.
Well, these guys would win because literally nothing can hurt them, and they
Well, we don't know how they interact with energy weapons. We just know they're immune to bullets.
Okay.
The Daleks' weapons could be their
The
weakness.
Daleks would probably just form some coalition, forcing everyone to kill each other, and then
The Daleks would be in the
victor.
background manipulating everyone else into destroying each other.
I honestly kind of miss the Daleks. I know before I was pretty hard on them for appearing so much, but I think it's time, even though it's not going to happen soon, but...
Don't worry. Hopefully they get a big epic return serial. Hopefully it's not something that's just like, oh, the Daleks are back.
Dang
Let's
it.
go, Liz.
But yeah, so the ambassadors confront everyone in the base. They stop the recording. They stop Carrington, and he stands down. I don't know. I kind of liked at the end how he stood down.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a soldier, so like...
The whole serial he kept talking about his moral duty to do things. Like, it was his moral duty to blow up the spaceship. And then when he was about to kill the Doctor, it was his moral duty to kill the Doctor. And then it was his moral duty to make this announcement.
Which I guess kind of makes sense. I mean, if he is, I guess, in the end, thinking about the safety of the planet in his weird, skewed way of doing it.
Yeah, I guess. Although, God, I was about to say Chorley. The director dude. What's his name? Anyway, yeah, him. He was like, you're bringing down hell on earth, Carrington, if you do this. And he's like, but I have to. It's my moral duty.
But he eventually stands down. And in the end, he asks the Doctor... I actually like this scene. He asks the Doctor if he understood why that he was just doing everything because of his duty, and the Doctor's like, I understand, man.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't say man, but it's like, I understand.
And then the Doctor makes a hasty exit for whatever reason and just leaves Liz behind.
It ends really abruptly. The Doctor's like, well, I guess my work is done here. Bye, Liz. Bye, Brig. He walks away. And
yeah, and the director dude is like, wait, but I need help communicating with the ambassador. He's like, well, you got Liz. Peace. And he's about to shake the ambassador's hand. He's like, oh, better not do that.
Again, it ends on such a lighthearted note.
And then he leaves. Well, wait, I like the lighthearted ending better than last week's he's killed them all. That's genocide ending.
That's true. So, yeah.
No preview for next week's episode this time.
Oh.
Speaking of which, you were right. The scenes where the Doctor was just in a black room describing the serial were recorded specifically for the preview.
Yep.
And didn't appear anywhere in the serial.
Well, you could pretty much tell that when watching the preview and the Doctor makes dramatic scenes like whatever was in that spaceship turns to the camera. It wasn't human. But yeah, the preview actually, contrary to our belief, didn't spoil anything for this.
Yeah,
hardly anything. Except that whatever was in the spaceship wasn't human.
Well, I mean...
Which was... you basically assume that once you watch this serial.
Yeah.
Hopefully they continue that trend, although I know they don't in the reboot, as you were telling me.
Yeah. I mean, you don't realize it spoils it till you watch the episode and you're like, wow. Spoilers.
Yeah, those will probably be skipped once we get there. But yeah, nothing this week, unfortunately.
Or fortunately.
Either or, depending on whether you liked the preview or not.
So this episode, the writer credit was given to David Whitaker, who we know from Edge of Destruction, Power of the Daleks, Evil of the Daleks fame. But apparently it was mostly not written by David Whitaker. It was written by some random guy for episode 1 and then Malcolm Hulke for episodes 2 through 6.
Right.
Who
from the War Games.
Yeah, and also who wrote last week's serial, Doctor Who and the Silurians.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it does deal with a lot of the same themes of xenophobia and we should just kill them all.
Right, except this time it doesn't portray the Brig as an out-of-character murderer.
Yeah, this one handles it a lot differently than last week's did, I would say. Specifically that this week it wasn't like they didn't have contact with the alien species and they couldn't talk to them till the very end.
Right, which is why this alien species I felt was pretty weak. I mean, compared to the Silurians, who were actually the Silurians were actual characters. Like, yeah, they were the token alien species of the week, but they were, there was the upstart Silurian and there was the commander, and they were actually characters who had things to do with the plot. Whereas the ambassadors here were sort of just plot devices. And they were kind of cool, but
yeah, I guess we couldn't talk to them, but I suppose the ambassadors just a case of we want to get home. Can you stop keeping us here and making us kill people? I mean, they didn't ever communicate that, but
yeah,
that's the situation they were in. And it could be executed well if they would communicate.
And I guess it's interesting that maybe Malcolm Hulke actually does write the Doctor a little more harshly than other writers. Perhaps
he might.
We've only seen 3 Third Doctor serials so far, so I don't think I can really make a judgment on that.
He may have. I think he wrote one more before the War Games. Actually, I'll look at it now. But I mean, I told you this, but there was that book that came out, I think, in 2014, so it would be last year, about Malcolm Hulke and his work on other TV shows as well as this one. Oh, you wrote the Faceless Ones. Called Doctor Who and the Socialist, the story of Malcolm Hulke. And I guess he deals with a lot of themes that can be considered socialist, quote unquote. And yeah, he does kind of have a recognizable writing style, and that the Doctor kind of is a bit more
overbearing.
Overbearing and a lot harsher than he usually is, which
at least with his Third Doctor writing.
Yeah, which I guess is a product of the stories he's telling. Where like so far in the Third Doctor's run, he's told basically just stories about how a lot of people are xenophobic, and I guess he's trying to draw some parallels between that and maybe like colonialism / racism, maybe. Maybe
it's kind of hard with a show like this, with a sci-fi serialized TV show rather than like a novel or a play or something where I feel like it's easier to do like a social commentary with something like that. I mean, especially not with like producers and directors kind of telling you, guiding you.
His wiki page mentions that he writes in shades of gray, which I think is actually a good way to describe it. Since his
fitting because the movie's coming out today. No,
today it would come out yesterday when this episode goes out. But no, I think that's a good way to describe him. A lot of it, the serials we've seen from him so far, which, the Faceless Ones, the War Games, the Silurians, and the Ambassadors of Death, have all dealt with topics that are in a pretty gray area in regards to morality.
Yeah.
I mean, the Faceless Ones where it's like they need to like reboot their race, and that's why they're taking the humans. So it's like, is it right to like kill them? Same with the Silurians. Is it right to kill these species that were living here before humans and only went into hibernation to avoid something they thought would kill them all off?
And that one line that I actually really liked from the War Games with where the warlord tells the Time Lords that, hey, these people would have killed each other anyway. Why not use them for this cause instead of their own?
I actually like those serials where it's like a moral gray area where you don't really know what is the correct move to make, and in the end, you basically just have to make what is the most correct move. Like, no decision you make in that situation is going to be entirely correct. You just have to make the one that's the most correct.
Yeah, and I know this was something back in the first Doctor's run, we were talking about how we kind of wanted to see stuff like this, and they're finally doing some things like this. So
yeah, I mean, I guess we can talk more about Malcolm Hulke later. He has more serials. 4 more serials coming up at least, and he novelized a lot of them. And he worked on other TV shows too. Apparently, he worked on the Avengers, the TV show, which is not
Avengers.
No, it's not the Avengers you're thinking of. With the, it's not
the Marvel Avengers.
No, it's a different show.
Have you heard of it? Like,
I've heard of it. I couldn't explain what it was, but I just know it's not the Marvel Avengers. But yeah.
Something else about the Third Doctor. I read that originally, I don't know who the producer is at this point, or the
script editor is Terrence Dix.
That famous script editor, but
well, he has edited some pretty good scripts so far, and he co-wrote the War Games. Yeah. So with Malcolm Hulke.
Originally I read that the production team had envisioned the Third Doctor as being more humorous and lighthearted than the first and second Doctor, and that they wanted Pertwee to play him that way in a more lighthearted and comedic way. But Pertwee didn't want to do that. He wanted a more serious character, so eventually they just went with that, which is interesting.
Which is kind of interesting considering the Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, actually wanted him to be a lot more serious of a character and to deal with a lot more heavy themes than previously. But the producers said, no, we need to make you like sort of more light-hearted, kind of. And then we ended up with this weird amalgamation Sixth Doctor character who's kind of just a jerk to everyone, apparently, just kind of just a terrible person to be around and tries to strangle his companion in his first story, And he has that weird Technicolor coat when, Colin Baker wanted a black leather jacket similar to what Nine would get later because he wanted to reflect his darker character that he wanted to portray.
Yeah, maybe that was, I don't know, because, we're not there yet, but maybe that was a product of Baker, obviously wanting to play a more serious character, but the production team not wanting him to, so it just ended up with this weird mix.
Yeah.
And, maybe they did veto it because they okayed Pertwee, and they're like, okay, well, we had that, the Third Doctor ended up being a serious character. Yeah. Now we actually do want a lighthearted one.
Yeah, and I don't know, Fourth Doctor apparently is pretty humorous, and the Fifth Doctor's, I haven't heard anything about him, and then, Seventh Doctor, manipulative genius, I suppose, and apparently all the other Doctors hate the Seventh Doctor, according to, like, novelizations and things, so.
And then the reboot, I feel like, is more witty humor, which is more like what they do in modern shows, not like...
I think you have to kind of take the reboot and the classic series to be separate shows almost, because they're made in different times and they're made, with completely different directions in mind, I think.
Yep. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. I'm surprised they didn't reboot. Well, yeah, they rebooted the series, but I'm surprised they didn't, retcon everything. I'm surprised they didn't just start it over. I'm surprised they actually continued it. I guess because there was such a big fan base.
I don't know how much of the fan base would survive. I mean, the show ended in what, 89? That's 20, well, it's not 20,
years.
It's like 16 years. And there was the TV movie. I guess, I don't know why they went with the decision to continue it. There's probably some story behind it. I think, retconning it maybe wouldn't have been a good decision, starting over.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that they should have retconned it. Maybe they should have. I haven't seen any of it, so I can't make that call yet. But I'm not saying they should have retconned it. I'm just surprised that they didn't. To be honest, after
they like
10-year
pseudo retconned it because I don't think they even mentioned any of the pre-9 Doctors till like into the 10th Doctor's run. Like, I don't even think we found out that it was like the 9th or 10th Doctor till later in their run. Like, we knew the 9th Doctor was post-Time War, but he didn't acknowledge any of his predecessors till a while into the reboot, actually.
Well, yeah, that's probably... I mean,
the first time I can think of is actually in, Tennant's second season, which would have been season 3, where there's a notebook with a drawing of all the Doctor's other faces in, which would been the first time... as far as I know, is the first time that they acknowledged the other 8 faces.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously they didn't want to alienate fans who hadn't watched the classic show, and if they referenced it a lot, they're just like, what? Did I miss something or something like that?
Yeah. I guess that's a discussion we'll have when we get to the 9th Doctor and whether or not starting at 9 was a good idea or not. Which,
right.
Yeah, that discussion requires in-depth knowledge of Doctors 3 through 8,
which we don't
have yet. So, yeah, kind of a dead-end conversation right now. But I, for one, am looking forward to more Malcolm Hulke serials, and that's all I have left to say.
Yeah.
Email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants. Do you think the reboot should have started with the first Doctor again, starring
a cardboard cutout of Hartnell?
CGI Hartnell? Then email us and tell us. Check us out on YouTube at Trust Your Doctor. Check us out on iTunes at Trust Your Doctor. And yeah, check out the website.
Check us out on Facebook, also unsurprisingly at Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. And next week, we're watching Inferno. But until then, the end.